Hello and welcome to the 40th episode of Rambling Weekly. Woohoo, the big 40. I guess, kind of. I don't know. Anyways, for this episode, I want to talk about trying to reinvent yourself. If I can learn how to talk, it would really make this go a lot easier. Yeah, so we'll get right into that after a few things, like we normally do. Welcome back. That there is Bond of Sea and Flame, which is from the Xenogears Orchestral album. It's Myth, the Xenogears Orchestral album by Mitsuda. So for me, Xenogears soundtrack is my favorite of Mitsuda's work. I really like Chrono Cross's music and everything, but there's something about there's just this. I think it's probably all the heavy Celtic influences, and that's not to say that's not there in Xenogears or Chrono Cross as well. But I don't know. There's just something about that soundtrack that really just it hits deep, and I really enjoy it. And I liked Creed, the other kind of arranged album that's come out. There's probably a few others that Mitsuda's had a hand in that. Yeah. Pretty great. It'd be really nice if they made an actual proper remake of that game and, added in all the content that didn't get in there and really fixed up that second disc. Maybe that's what Takahashi and Co. are doing. They're slowly ingratiating themselves to Nintendo and building up all this goodwill to give one last hurrah at Xenogears Reloaded, Reanimated, Redisciplined. I don't know. Where is the director's cut where is the properly funded director's cut of Xenogears? Darn it, it's all Final Fantasy VIII's fault to a degree, and also their fault for not wanting to make this into Final Fantasy VII. This game could have been Final Fantasy VII. If I have a beef to pick with either of those two games, I don't know which one would be the bigger mound to pick apart, but Final Fantasy VII supplanted what could have been, Final Fantasy with what they made with Xenogears. Also, because of how well Final Fantasy did, all that money that they were putting into Xenogears, whatever was left of it, they basically were like, okay, you're done. That's why Disc 2 is what it is. I hates it. It's not fair. I'm sorry, but hey, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good myself. It's been getting a bit chillier with the fall-like weather really grabbing hold there. I did see the weather lean kind of towards warming up a bit. I don't know how much of an uptick. Hopefully nothing too major. I like the cold myself. It gives me energy. It gives me purpose. I don't know. For whatever reason, the colder it gets, the more lively I become. And I know that it's not quite the case for a lot of people, and it might just be because I'm cold. I don't know. But it works for me. So I started up a new job as the first week of it, and I'm doing all right with it. I know I'm going to be a little late getting this one out, and it doesn't have to do with the job. It has everything to do with me. I had a couple of opportunities to record stuff to make it an easier thing, and then I was like, I'll get to it. And then yesterday I was super sleepy, and I was supposed to record with Sushi, and I was a little late doing that because I dozed off in my chair, the same little chair that I'm sitting in right now. I just dozed off like an old man. It's just like, ooh, and then thankfully woke up in time to get that recording in and everything. So other than that, I'm getting through Divinity. Original Sin 2. I am at the second part. I was just on a ship, escaped an island, and yeah, I think this is where I got the last time I was playing it, and I remember why I was so defeated, because it's like every time I run into somebody, like I'm level 9, and they're all like, oh, I'm level 12, I'm level 13. Oh boy. Oh no. So I kind of need to figure that out. Been playing a little bit of that, and streaming here and there, kind of bouncing back and forth between Langrisser 1, and I know played Contra, a collection of the Contra games and stuff, and I've exported it to be on, because, you know, after a few days I'll export it onto YouTube channel and stuff. And I think because I had beaten at least one of them and let the credits run through, there is a copyright claim. And I'm just like, why? This is dumb. I mean, I kind of got it with... No, I didn't kind of. I got it with the Mega Man 11 review as well, because I inserted a clip of... oh, wow, I can't think of his name. Prolific Russian ballet dancer. What the heck is his name? Oh, my goodness. I can't think of his name. Oh, no. Russian ballet dancer, because this will bother me if I don't remember this. Mikhail Baryshnikov. There we go. I don't even remember. I think it was talking because of one of the Robot Masters. And it's like, oh yeah, it kind of got a Russian vibe, made by Dr. Cossack. Oh, and they ice skate. It's close enough for Baryshnikov reference. So, but yeah, that. Yeah, so I've been working and everything, and that's been going fine. I'm actually, like, because of how much more active the job is, I've lost 5 pounds in a week. That just also shows how fat I am. I'm a little squishy, so been working on that. Been trying to work on that, so all that sort of fun jazz. Let's see what else has been going on. Partly because of the change in job and everything, I have been a bit more tired because of being more active. But it was really just like after the first day or two, and even after that, I was like, oh, okay, you know, I'm in it. Like, in it to win it. So, but after that first day, I tried typing out some of chapter I have written for a story. I got like 2 paragraphs in. I'm like, I'm super sleepy. I couldn't do it anymore. So I need to get back into that. But I have today and tomorrow off, so I definitely am going to get into that a bit more. Yeah, anything else going on? Not really. That's really about it that's going on for me. So, yeah, we'll get into this topic, which is about a reinvented soul. Oh, I should say this, though. This will have spoilers, because I am such a conceited egomaniac. I'm actually going to springboard off of the ending for one of the characters from my book, Sudraba. Just a paragraph, but it's important to lead into what this conversation's about. Plus, it makes it a little bit easier. It's not like it's that hard to talk about. That's just kind of how my brain pieced it together. So I'll be reading a short paragraph or 2 from that, and yeah, we'll go from there. But first, we have a little break, and then we'll be back. Welcome back. That there is October Mermaid. And if you are a fan of Xenogears and or at least been a fan for a while, like the OST, like myself, you tend to start to question certain things, and this song is one of them, more so in the sense of the title. It's a theme song for a character that pops up fairly late in the grand scheme of the game, in the sense of playability of the game. But the big thing with it is that it was titled as June Mermaid for the longest time, and I'm not 100% certain if that was just due to a translation error or if it was due to the fact that I believe it's Esmeralda is the character's name that it's a theme for, just because that character looks and has a lot of aqua blues and greens. If that doesn't play into like just kind of leaning into it a little bit and going that route with it, not 100% certain why, but it's actually called October Mermaid, and a few months off. But it is October. It's the middle of October, so it's a good time to pick the song, isn't it? I don't know. It's a piano version. I really like it. Really nice. Good tune. Anyways, topic. Reinvented Soul. And I've totally forgot to grab my book. Okay, time out. Okay, so this is going to be from page 325 to 326, and it's just a couple of paragraphs. It is the epilogue, and this deals with Anastasia, or Anastasia, however you want to say it, and this will springboard into what I want to talk about with this reinvented soul sort of thing. And I quote, "As her men spoke, Anastasia listened and fought to retain as many details as she could. In wanting to leave Sudraba, she had been convinced by her father to act as an envoy to help the ambassador recently established there. How long the task would last, she did not know, nor was she certain of where to go afterwards. The entire world beckoned, but all she wanted was to go back. Not simply back to Sudraba, but back to before the incident, and even earlier still. Tired, and without the energy and determination of youth, a new life felt impossible, suffocating, but she desperately clung to hope. In such a state, Anastasia rode the Samarad towards the Principality of Damahorn, disappearing from the pages of Sudraban history." Anyways, this is something I wanted to talk about, is this reinvention of the soul, or being the new man, the new person, the new woman, what have you. For myself, I think we all do this, from childhood to teenager to adulthood to elderly, as our role or what is expected upon us from, in a societal sense, in a social sense, in a neighborly sense. We all develop a personage about ourselves, to phrase it, to do what we got to do to not necessarily fit in, but to quote unquote survive, to make things work, we'll say. And that changes by what it is within oneself to be like, oh, well, this is what I need to live life. Either aiming more and more for comfortability, or you can be neurotic like me and be like, oh, if I save time doing work on this, that means there's more time to do work on other things. That sort of mentality. I myself did it from going over and being in Japan and then coming back. That is certainly a change of person, and a change that you just have to adapt to. I mean, I was forewarned about it a long time ago. Johnny, the console gamer, he had mentioned it about somebody's brother that he knew, and I'll save the details exactly on that. But somebody's brother that he knew that came back after a similar sort of stint for a long time, and the difficulties in readjusting. I think that's what tends to happen for a lot of people that go elsewhere. Either they didn't like where they were and just have no interest in returning, so they either find new places to go beyond that, or they go and they are still who they are, but they've been so long entrenched that it's kind of like going back is a really hard thing to do. That is a lot of energy. It is hard. Like similarly with maybe changing jobs or something like that. It is a hard first step, because it's basically trying to relive a childhood memory of mine. I opened my mouth at one point complaining, saying somebody was a fibber when it came to riding those little razor scooters down a hill. It was a very steeply angled hill. He rode down this thing, came back up, and he's like, I didn't hit my brakes once. It was super fun, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you are a fibber. You hit those brakes. So I who, like, I can't even ride a bike because my balance is not so good. I go down this thing and I'm like, oh, I'm in danger, because once that handle does that little fidget, like figure 8 sort of thing, you're cooked. I couldn't bail out into the grass on the right side because there was a wooden fence, and I couldn't bail onto the left side because I had a whole bunch of trees. So I did the next best thing, which was, instead of trying to hit the brakes to slow down, I just stepped off of the thing thinking I could just run it. To my amazement, I did not blow out my knee, which is, I could have thinking about it. I could have blown out my knee real bad, but instead it kind of locked up. I popped up into the air, and I did the smartest thing I could have done, which was cage myself to protect my head and other important parts of my body, and then just tumbled down the road. Didn't necessarily prove that you couldn't ride down it without hitting your brakes, but I proved I could. So, but in trying to quote unquote reinvent oneself, I feel like it's the moment that you try to step off the scooter and then get going again. That's really hard to do. And that's where I feel like that's just the energy and stuff needed and involved to make that sort of change. And I think it's a really easy thing to do when you are younger. Not even necessarily that you have more energy per se. I think part of the energy thing, sure, it certainly becomes more and more of a thing as you get older and older and older. But I also think part of that comes back to, what are you eating, what is your sleep schedule and stuff, and then what also like is going on throughout the day to make you so tired, kind of thing. Because I was working with somebody who was always constantly saying, oh, I'm tired, and they're chugging Dr. Pepper all the time, and they've got a busy home life, and their sleep schedule is all sort of disjointed and everything. And it's like, well, okay, like maybe you want to look at those sorts of things. For myself, I want to say, oh, it's not a big deal. I don't have trouble with it. I say that, but then in the same hand, there are certainly sacrifices that I've made in that regard to quote unquote reinvent myself. Heck, you've seen it with the YouTube channel. If you've been around for a little bit, you know exactly how I am on these sorts of things. And I don't even have this in real life. It's just with YouTube and stuff like that. I have this very ADHD sort of tendency to just be like, oh, I'll start doing this, but then I'll start doing something else. But I'm not quite like that. I'll be fairly regimented with stuff where I'll have okay, I'm doing this, and doing this, and this, and this. I guess when I'm not scripting myself, that's where I tend to end up. But if I script myself, it's... or at least I understand what the processes of what I need to do are there. I tend to be able to grapple with it a lot better than just kind of I mentioned the thing with Anastasia because I feel like that's the big scare that people get. And so even if they are stuck or seemingly stuck, or just in a rut, or in a habit that has gone on perhaps far too long, it becomes either a scary thing to separate oneself from the habit, or to just a difficult thing because it becomes this leather kind of thing where it's okay, all right, we have to borrow once again from Picard quote from Next Generation. You just kind of get comfortable with it, and then that comfortability, whether for better and for worse, is just the mask you wear at that point. And then at some point, I think we tend not to think too much about the psychological interests of what the masquerade involves, or what masking oneself has there. I know certain games, like Persona 5, definitely dives into that sort of thing to some degree, to a large degree. But I don't know, maybe it's because I don't talk to a bunch of people about it, that it doesn't seem to be something that comes up, of how much of the mask is the actual person versus, and it probably does, especially with superheroes and secret identities and everything like that. And maybe that's why it's past blasé. It's it is what it is. But I think it's always something that, and maybe this is because the internet and the nature of how people talk about things nowadays, the conversation is never over. And by what I mean by conversation, as I mean any topic, rightly or wrongly, is never over. And I think in a natural sense, we've, at least with like maybe in the West more so, we've become accustomed to thinking that, oh no, the conversation is over and this is the answer. However, that is, how to put this? That to me is like having a skill branch tree in a game that you've chosen and neglected all the other ones because you're like, that's not a good one. I don't want to be a necromancer. Those guys are scary. They become liches. No. But you've chosen this skill branch for this class and have hand waved off all the others and said, no, this is the path. This is the correct path. And while that may work out for you, it doesn't. Other people may choose that other path because they're like, oh no, liches are cool. Pew pew, death magic. That's part of the conversation. It's going to get rehashed. That's, I think, something that as a people we don't ever take into consideration. It's like, nope, we've got the answer. And it's like, well, we may have the answer that works for us, but somebody else has a very different answer because they've taken a very different test, but it's still asking the same questions. That's, I guess, where that, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think that going from big picture to microcosm and small picture of life is that we are always being asked. The conversation is always going within. And eventually we get to the point that, if you were to take a test day in and day out, and it's the same test, it's a simple test. It's like 5 questions. How are you? How's the weather today? What do you have planned for yourself? What are you going to eat? How are you going to comfort yourself? And it's those same 5 very simple, basic questions that are wordlessly asked. Eventually you get to a point where you just hand wave it away. I'm not even going to think about it. Not even going to. Until, maybe the moment, I'm hungry. Maybe I should get insert sponsor here. But, you get to a point where, similarly to where regimenting one's life, there's a martial attitude to it. Some would say it's a strict, maybe perhaps too severe attitude. But in regimenting things, at least for myself, how it works better because it develops a sturdy platform to which to build on and to keep going from there. And, if I'm waking up at 6 a.m., maybe even a little earlier or something, and I've got that set in place, similar to like with Steve Jobs. Didn't Steve Jobs purposely wear the same thing or like the same presented attire all the time so he could think on other things? So he's regimented himself to that simplistic style, so then he can work on other things. However, if you go back into it, maybe it gets to a point where he just has no style on how to wear much of anything else, and it's just like, very super basic because that's just wearing clothes. But we tend to agree that wearing clothes is I take it back. There are people who are totally fine with not wearing clothes all the time. Oh no, I've fallen for my own trap. But that's what I mean, though, is that, like, we are always given these questions and we come up with answers. Eventually to get to a point, maybe you get sick and tired of answering the thing, and so you just answer C for all the questions instead. It's not even multiple choice, but we're picking the C answer all the time. I think if you develop that habit as is, what ends up happening is that when you do get blindsided, or maybe not even blindsided, because blindsided, I think people are adjustable enough to where they can pivot around the problem. Not to say they won't take damage from it, but you can take the damage and then realign yourself to accept the damage. Maybe not for the best part, but you still keep trucking. However, you don't develop the skill or habit to maybe but to address those wounds, whether they're psychological, emotional, physical, what have you. Even if you don't have that extreme damaging approach, and say you just want to change something. I want to change something. I became a bit chunky. I want to change that. How do you do that? Well, you got to make the appropriate changes. Now, I know for myself, I have a bad habit when I am stressed. I like to stress eat. So, from a previous job that was having me be super stressed and super angry, not good for me. Even if I was working a whole bunch, because I was stress eating so much to compensate for it, I wasn't losing any weight. I would hit a base point and nothing was happening. Now with this other job, I am not anywhere remotely as stressed, and I know I'm not eating like excessively. I'm eating, but I'm just not like, oh, it's lunchtime, let me chow down a whole bunch on this sort of stuff. And that's a small change. Like doing the whole writing thing, I had to, really hunker down. Arbel can attest to this. David can attest to this. Because those two in particular were in contact with me when I was writing Sudraba. I think Sushi was a bit as well. I don't know if we were doing much in the way of recordings just yet. But when I was writing, I was not mean, but I went into hedgehog mode. I went into hedgehog mode more because it was like, I need to focus on this. I can't have all the distracting shiny things really getting to me. And that takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of energy to be like, okay, I'm going to focus. I'm going to disassociate if I have to. I'm going to put all these things in place to get what I want to go for. And, it takes energy. It takes discipline. It takes, it takes a lot of different sacrifices. And yeah, that's just, it's a difficult thing. And that's why that's in the story, because at the end of that ordeal for Anastasia, similarly to how somebody wants to change something, so they start it, but then it's like, well, they kind of have the Jesus take the wheel sort of moment, and it doesn't really help in the way of, well, if you you yourself, the impetus is on you. Certainly others can help lift one up, but similarly to how if you are a boss to somebody and that somebody works really well with you, cool. They do their job, they're active, all that sort of stuff. However, if the moment that you as the boss step away and their effort and everything just tanks, what kind of person they are then. And it's like, that's not good. That's not helpful. You can't always be there for somebody, as painful as that may be. Myself, I think it's a little too excessive to be like up somebody's own butt 24/7. I can barely tolerate being around myself all the time. I don't know how I could do that with somebody else, 24/7. It's just kind of like, okay, go, do something else kind of thing. Or I'm going to go do something else. But, yeah. So, oh no, I've lost where I was going with that. But, so you can't always have somebody there to just, hang your coat on or use to keep you in that spot. You yourself, it has to come from within. Certainly, yeah, when it comes to a boss-worker relationship kind of thing, as a worker, it is your responsibility in that relationship to within means, right? And if you identify, this is encroaching an abusive territory or something, that's one thing. However, that's also a perception is king kind of thing, where it's like, well, is it really that it's abusive, or you just don't want to do it? And that's for another conversation, all sorts together. It is how you act when you are on your own. And I know I've said that somewhere else before, but I am much more in the mind with regards to the masquerade, that sort of thing. Certainly it is timer for laundry's done. It is the mask is a presentation of what somebody may be or what they might do. However, it is, I will always go with this. The presentation, the words that come out of somebody's mouth certainly may belie something. However, it is always the actions of somebody. How you are perceived is by your actions much more than anything else. And how you are as a person is the interplay between your actions and your words and your thoughts. And of course, you yourself are the only one that's going to know your thoughts. So you'll know deep down inside. You may do something, and you may do something to help somebody, and you may begrudgingly do it. But if you are kind of putting on that stern demeanor, but in your own thoughts, it's like, you don't have a problem with it. Well, that's kind of the core of yourself, how you perceive yourself. But other people will only get 2 of those data points. I don't know. It's a tough thing to do. That's really it. It's tough to reinvent oneself, to push through. And I know there are bajillion different ways that people have tried to profit off of said things, or I always see the ones that are like 10 things you can do to improve yourself, or these are 10 things I noticed when I was improving myself. You see those a lot on Twitter nowadays and stuff, or see them on YouTube videos. And yeah, in certain ways you can extrapolate those same sort of lessons. In the other hand, those are what they are. They're just lessons. That's part of the quiz of life, or the test of life, is that you are given a lot of lessons and a lot of different answers. And though the question or questions may all be the same for us, we are taking them in sometimes in very similar settings and environments, and sometimes in wildly different ones. We may come up with the same answer, but due to circumstance, it might not be the best one. So I don't know. It is a fun and interesting thing to think about, but in the same hand, it is also just a slugfest, because you get the benefit of life, of living, to kind of build yourself into one person, but then it's like, well, I've spent 23 years doing this, so now it's time to completely reinvent myself on the fly. Or you just kind of bulldoze through being yourself and see where that leads you, because maybe it does something, or maybe it catches you unaware and puts you on your butt. And if you haven't been put on your butt, it might make that hurt a whole lot more. So yeah, that's what I got for the topic. It is something that's I've done. I like I said, I believe everybody goes through this sort of thing where you reinvent yourself, or even just kind of metastasize pieces and parts to then fully grow into your own being and whatnot, and then kind of go from there. So yeah, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with a quote. So stay tuned. Welcome back. That song there is Soaring. At least that's what the title goes with for the Myth album. People may be more familiar with it in the older translation title of Flight, and it kind of pops up in a very odd time from what I remember. I think it was the Chew guys, Chew. But yeah, it's been a hot minute, but if I remember correctly, that song pops up at a pretty... it's very uplifting and everything, but it's probably been close to 10 years since I've played Xenogears. I need to play it again. Last time I played it in Japanese, and that was all sorts of fun. Let's learn about Kant and Nietzsche and all sorts of German philosophical thought in Japanese. Yay. Oh boy. But yeah, good tune, very uplifting tune, and it leads us into some of these quotes, and I want to bring up a few of them. They are by Heraclitus I probably said that wrong, but he was one of these old Greek dudes from way back in the day, but part of the city that was like Ephesus, that was part of the Persian Empire and he has some really good quotes. One in particular that I like is, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." And I think that hits the nail on the head for the topic, is that certainly there is always the sense of change in oneself, but also there's always the sense of change in the environment in which they are in. And I really like that one. I think that one's a very, very cool thing. I know some people might think of him a bit more as misanthropic. I think there is a tinge of that can always be there. Feels like it is an easy avenue to find yourself in when you look at just the swath of other people out there and just be like, come on, really? I think that's where, similarly to where people can maybe have some sort of philosophical question that they find an answer that attunes well to their spirit, their well-being, their soul, what have you. They come across an answer that all this works. However, they don't, in finding the treasure, you don't ever take a step to analyze it further. It's like, oh, we've got it, and then they just run with that flag, that idea, for however long. And I think that's hence why the conversation never ends, is that it's you should not only reevaluate, but you should evaluate that answer and hone it down further, or trial it by fire, so to say. Because if you do have an answer for something, is that like, oh, everybody, George Carlin had that thing about people. So I can't remember exactly how it goes. I kind of in the same head of, take average intelligence, and now close to 50% of those people are dumber than that. Which is a very simple way to put it, and it also paints it in a poor light, because then there isn't a gradient. It's just, oh, they're just dumber than average. And not only is that a wholly unfair way to paint people, but it's also, there's a whole lot of intelligence out there. There's intelligence, like an emotional intelligence, a intelligence of the body, an intelligence of like social understandings, mechanical understandings, all sorts of different kind of intelligences. But to just say, oh, if you take the midpoint, that mid-average, and there's it's unfair, and it is somebody who thinks that they're being really smart wants to highlight, and then being like, oh, look at how foolish people are. you fool. I can't mimic what Dagoth there. But that's about as close as I can get. Just, you fool. Oh, but what a haughty, intoxicating voice. Such a fantastic voice act. I don't know who that guy is off the top of my head. But anyways, I'm falling into the Red Mountain. Oh no. It's that misstep I feel like a lot of people then get into, instead of going a further step, because that first step's already hard enough to make, and then once again making that next step, continuing to make those steps. I think that's the way that you go about it, because sometimes you will make a step, and then unfortunately you'll tumble 2 or 3 steps back, and then you have to pick yourself up and make those steps again, if you think that it is worth it. If you think that it is. And sometimes, once bitten, twice shy, you just sort of, okay, I'm good, I'm done, I am done. So, some other quotes of his that I like: character is destiny, as opposed to destiny is destiny. Thank you. Final Fantasy 13-43721Q13. Thank you. Anyways, character is destiny. And then the one in particular that I also really like is, the world, which is the same for all, has not been made by any god or man, but it always has been, is, and will be an ever-living fire. So, yeah, he was kind of an edgy boy some 2,500 years ago. Just very much in the idea of the world is in flux constantly. And I think that is true. We've hit a very weird point to which, and I feel very strongly that this is the case, is that ever since the strong advent and ubiquitous nature of the internet, things have sort of flash frozen, but we've gotten to a point now you start to see the degradation of culture and everything. It doesn't really feel any different It doesn't feel very different from, in a lot of ways, than what it was in the mid to late 90s. Not even, like, look at, like, clothing style, look at just general attitudes. Certainly there are some things that are different, but I think they're almost just an amplification of what had already been laid there in the 90s and everything. Now I'm going to check to make sure I'm actually recording, because I'm going to feel really foolish. There was a moment of terror. My heart was in my throat going, oh no, had I recorded this? Did I hit the record button? And now I have that ever comforting sense of like a cooling in the chest. Whew, thank goodness. But yeah, I think that there's starting to see the top is starting to tipsy turve a little bit now, but you're looking at close to 25-30 years since then, and that's a lot of built up spinning of the wheels energy. A lot of, what is that, kinetic energy? Physics has long escaped me as I live in the eternal plane, but like it's not kinetic energy. What's the other one? Kinetic energy is the well, no, I think it's kinetic energy. We'll go. Somebody will correct me. They will correct me and tell me how much of an idiot I am. All that stored up energy, it will get unleashed, and it's going to be a wild and crazy time, and not in the old Saturday Night Live skit. We are two wild and crazy guys, and we get to live through the may we live through interesting times portion, the bad dark side of that saying, the backhanded side of that saying. Yay. Great, fun times. Anyways, more importantly, that is it for me today. I hope you enjoy your day, week, weekend, whenever you may be hearing this. May you find some peace and comfort, even though I may not have really given it this episode. But have a good one. Enjoy your day. Find some small thing that brings a smile to your face, whether that be a cloud that looks like a monkey. I don't know if I think I have the picture somewhere. I might try to put it in here. It was a couple weeks back. I was like, oh, that looks kind of like a monkey. That's kind of cool. Or I don't know, something. You can be like me and have Kirby's festooned across the apartment. Kirby's everywhere. It's almost like the Trouble with the Tribbles from Star Trek. They're just everywhere. But anyways, that's it from me. Take it easy, and I will hopefully see you next week. All right, bye. Okay, kind of fibbed. Totally forgot to mention the the ending theme. It is the orchestrated version of Small Two of Pieces, and yes, I know it came out like a half a year after. Yes, I know it sounds very much like it, and by golly gee, I don't care. I love this song. It sounds very much like the Titanic theme, but it is a good song, darn it, and I don't care. Both of them. Sure, why not? I'll throw the Titanic song in there. Celine Dion was fantastic. Fantastic voice for it. Anyways, yeah, Small Two of Pieces, the orchestral version. I really like the song. It's just really, really good. And a lot of the music that Mitsuda's vocal stuff, a lot of people seem not to care for it so much. I really like it. I liked a lot of the music, vocal music in Xenogears, or I'm sorry, Xenosaga. There's a lot of different songs that I don't think are in game, but are kind of attributed to like nods into Xenosaga episode 1, and those songs are really, really great, I feel like. But that's it for another time. Anyways, that's it. Bye.